The Holocaust. Was it all Hitler's fault? Hitler and his Nazis were not the only people responsible for 11 million people killed. Other Germans that weren't Nazis were also a part of the killings. Here are some pictures that show how tragic their deaths were. In the left, you can see how they had no respect and their dead bodies were just piled on top of each other. On the right, you can see that they were starved to death.
Later, the Nazis expelled all Jews from the civil service and universities. The regime increased the intensity and volume of anti-Semitic propaganda. Jews were portrayed as repulsive and corrupt, manipulative, greedy, and anti-German. Caricatures appeared under the slogan, "The Jews are our misfortune." The Nazis introduced these images to children's literature on the school curriculum, and the state-controlled media fed the German public a steady diet of racial hatred. By demonizing the Jews, the Nazis isolated them socially. Gradually, Jews were banned from public places and expelled from all associations, clubs, and civic organizations. In September 1935, Hitler personally introduced the Nuremberg Laws,
Nuremberg Laws. Nazis set out new laws that showed that racial rumors about them were true. One of the laws was that it excluded German Jews from being citizens and permitted them from having sexual relations or marrying people who were German, who had German blood. Germans didn't look at religiousness anymore. Anyone who had Jewish grandparents were considered Jews. Even Jews who were considered themselves as Christians were considered Jews. German Jews couldn't even practice in Olympics or any type of games. During the Olympics, signs were put up in public saying no Jews allowed. So they basically excluded them from everything. In 1937 through 1938, the laws got worse. Jews had to register their property over to Germans. Jewish doctors couldn't even treat Germans. Jewish lawyers couldn't even practice laws. So they basically had no part in anything. In this picture, there is an example of a sign that was put up in order to keep Jews out of a certain area. Jews were required to carry identification cards, which required a red J stamped on them. They also gave them a new middle name if their name wasn't a Jewish type. Middle names that they gave them were Sarah for girls and Israel for boys. Another law was that Jews couldn't have German maids that were under 45 years old. This was because Germans thought Jews would force people to be on their side. People would disappear if they were German and were on a Jew's side, or if a German woman was married to a Jew. And by disappeared, it means they mysteriously went missing. And rumors were they were tortured and killed due to their disgrace to the German name. In both pictures, you can clearly see how not only Jew adults were tortured and killed, it was also children. And on the right, you can see that there was a dog. Now, on to the Kristallnacht, which is when a Jewish teen, Herschel Greenspan, killed Ernest von Rath because he didn't let his parents, who were half Polish, half Jewish, into Poland and sent them to a refugee camp. On November 9, 1932, Greenspan escaped from Paris and killed Ernest von Rath, which started the Night of Broken Glass.
Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels wanted violence upon the Jews for killing Ernest von Rath. Goebbels' words were taken as command and started violence. Germans went door to door taking all the Jewish men, and if they refused, they would get beaten and tortured. Germans started to destroy the Jews' buildings and houses, setting them on fire, breaking the windows, which is how it got its name, the Night of Broken Glass, because after all the violence, the street was full of debris left from destroying buildings.
On the night of my mother's birthday, it was the eve of November the 10th, And my brother and I were very excited about my mother's birthday coming up. And we went to sleep in our bedroom. And I think it must have been maybe 11 or maybe a little bit later than 11 o'clock at night. All of a sudden, some bricks and rocks were being thrown through our window. And my brother was always braver than me. He was a year younger, but he was braver. And I was hiding under the blanket. And he went to the window to check to see what was going on. And he told me that it was the people in our neighbors, the people of our town, were throwing the bricks and rocks through the window. And he also told me that the civil policeman in our town was standing on the edge of the crowd, and he didn't do anything about it.
Dachau. It was the first regular concentration camp made by the Nazis in Germany. It was located in the grounds of an abandoned warehouse 10 miles from Munich, in the town of Bavaria. In the first year, the camp held about 4,800 prisoners, and the number rose to 13,260 by 1937. The first people who were in the camp were not Jews.